Let's get to this topic of tariffs. So, as part of my experience with GAMA last week, we got to do our Capitol Hill Day, which I know you're very familiar with, and certainly had the privilege of speaking with members of Congress. And a main topic was, of course, what is potentially looming with tariffs. What's your take on the tariff situation, and should OEMs or aircraft owners be prepared for increased costs?
Well, it all depends on whether you think that uh, the tariff situation that we have is created as leverage to be able to go and get different trade deals out there that will then decrease the overall impact. We saw this week that with China, all of a sudden there's a backing down. I think it's 30% tariffs on Chinese goods, but we don't source as much out of China in our sector that other sectors do. But if you look at, first of all, Canada and Brazil, we have, or I'm sorry, Canada and Mexico, we have the North American Free Trade Agreement, the MCA, that was renegotiated under the last Trump administration. That provides an avenue by which we can reduce tariff barriers, especially parts and pieces. We do a lot of parts production in Mexico, whether it's initial production of the aircraft or maintainability with spares. Same thing out of Canada. So we have that capability. I know during the GAMA Hill Day last week, there was a big emphasis on trying to get the administration, through pressure from Congress, to recognize that in 1979 there was an international agreement between nations that basically says we are not going to impose tariffs on parts availability for aviation worldwide because it's such a global interconnected industry, which is a good thing.
Right.
And so the more that we can emphasize and try to get the administration to say, well, wait a second, first of all, the U.S. is an aviation nation. If you're trying to do what President Trump wants to do and bring manufacturing back to the U.S. that has drifted overseas, you would want to use aviation as the model because it's
Right.
a positive balance of trade on the aviation side. And so the effort is, right now, the tariffs are under the purview of the president, although there's within Congress to see whether or not Congress can reassert its authority there. But I don't think there's a whole lot of appetite within the Republican majorities in either the House or the Senate to go against the president. It's more a wait and see. So, our prices going to go up again, probably some, but that may be a perturbation in there. And then it's also, we have to be very careful as to watch the other impacts. So let's say that if we had tariffs on let's say a Pratt engine that was going over to Europe to be fitted on to a Pilatus or a Daher aircraft, and then that's sold worldwide. Okay, does that have a competitive advantage over a U.S. company that's taking a Pratt engine into the U.S. and would have to pay a tariff on it and go over and a reciprocal tariff placed on it from a country that we have imposed tariffs on? So it's so complicated, and really it's too early, it's too early to tell. But it could have a very detrimental impact on the industry if negotiations don't put some normality back into the system.
It really is complicated, but just your explanation there is super helpful. And we'll wait and see what happens.